But first, rent is due today, and that is a particularly big challenge for the tens of thousands of Canadian businesses that had been relying on help from the federal government. The Canada Emergency Commercial Rent Assistance Program meant that the costs of rent were divided between the tenant, the landlord, and the federal government. But yesterday, the clock ran out on the program, and the Minister of Small Business, Mary Ng, didn't have anything concrete to offer about what comes next.
I know that today is the end of the month, and I know that there are many businesses out there who are anxiously awaiting for a response from us. And I just want to assure you, we're absolutely working on that.
The uncertainty around rent relief is frustrating for business owners like Jeff Clark.
As soon as they announced that it was going to be landlord-driven, my heart sank. I knew it was over. My landlord does not want to participate in it at all.
So, will the government extend rent relief, and can they find a way to help make the heavily criticized program work better? Let's ask our panel of MPs. In Gatineau, Quebec, Greg Fergus is the parliamentary secretary to the president of the Treasury Board. In Edmonton, James Cumming is the Conservative critic for small business. And in Port Alberni on the West Coast, Gord Johns is the NDP critic for small business and economic development. Welcome to all three of you. Greg Fergus, I am going to start with you. As of the end of July, there were 63... Sorry, Mr. Fergus, are you there?
Yeah, sorry. I said no doubt you'll start.
Yeah. Well, listen, because there are, as of the end of July, 63,000 business owners using this rent relief. And I just wonder how your government cannot have an answer for them about what comes next. Why can't you tell them what's happening?
Well, I think, first of all, I'd like to just say that Canadian business owners and Canadians in general can count on this government to be supportive and to be helpful. We were there from the very beginning, and I'd like to congratulate all the members of the parties on this panel for their help in making sure that Parliament had a response and this government had a response for Canadians when we needed income support back when the pandemic hit. It was a health crisis that brought us here with economic actions. Now, we helped out people with, of course, the Canadian Emergency Response Benefit. We also helped out with the business subsidy, wage subsidy, and we've also helped out with rent support. It's important to note that rent, of course, is something that we have to work with the provinces. It's in their jurisdiction, but we really took a Team Canada approach to all of this, and all the provinces came on board, and we were able to provide that rent relief.
So I understand why you want to talk about your approach, Mr. Fergus, but there are literally tens of thousands of businesses who may not have a very clear sense right now of whether or not help is coming on.
Businesses in my riding, businesses all over Canada who do need this support.
Yes.
And let me just say this. We are very much aware of their needs. And we've made the Prime Minister and this government, and I even think Parliament has made a very strong commitment that we would be there for Canadians. And that I would just ask that allow us to do our work, and we'll be able to come up with something. I hope that would be that would meet the needs of all Canadians, including people who need help for rent support.
I think, given that it is the first of the month, I have to ask you, though, Mr. Fergus, to be crystal clear: is some kind of rent relief coming, even if it's a change to the program?
Well, I know that there are a lot of discussions which are going on. We are very sensitive to this to this issue, and that we are working, of course, with all our partners to making sure that we are there for Canadians. Look, just yesterday, we confirmed the continuation of the wage subsidy until the end of the year because we heard from business people from all across the country, and we heard from Canadians that they needed that kind of help.
But you weren't able to give that kind of confirmation about rent relief, right? I mean, the deadline is so important in this case.
I think a lot of people appreciate that the challenge to government is long, it's deep, and we are getting through the programs to making sure that we're going to be supporting Canadians and supporting Canadian businesses for as long as we need to make sure that we have that right response for dealing with this health crisis.
Mr. Cumming, I want to bring you into the discussion here. You're calling on the government to ease the eligibility requirements. I wonder, though, what about what we've heard from many small businesses? I believe we've heard this from the Canadian Federation of Independent Businesses as well. Just circumvent the landlord, put the money in the tenants' pockets. What do you think of that approach?
Well, firstly, thank you for having me on your show. And, when I hear words like hope and aware, those aren't action items. Those aren't things that are actually going to deal with the issues that I'm hearing from small businesses over and over and over again. I think it was in May, we suggested with the rent relief program that they should create better flexibility for it. So there should be better flexibility between the landlords and the tenants and allow them to enter into agreements that might be different than what the government had put forward. We also suggested that there should be some level of scaling, and they've ignored both those suggestions. And I'm telling you, businesses are incredibly frustrated. Another frustration was that on the CBC loan program, they announced the other day that there will be eligibility for those that don't have a business account, that they can actually use their personal banking account soon.
So
soon is not enough. They need action now. Rent's due on September, and they should show additional flexibility. The PBO has said that they're well under the budgeted amount that they suggested that they would be putting towards the CBC loan program. They should get it fixed, and they should get it fixed now.
Well, we're going to get to the business loans in a moment, but I want to stay focused on rent for a minute, Mr. Cumming, and just say if indeed they're going to adjust this program, and with all due respect to Mr. Fergus, I would say that sounds like that's what's happening, but it's still not clear. What's the number one thing the government needs to do to ensure more businesses get the rent help that they need?
Well, they should put greater flexibility into the program, and we've said that since day one. You know, landlords are in a business too, so landlords often have common area costs, they've got utility costs, they've got expenses as well. So what we suggested to the government is that they should allow the landlord and the tenant to come up with an agreement that will allow them to potentially blend and extend or come up with some different solutions to be able to give that certainty to the tenants, rather than have this fixed program the way they've designed it. And that's what we're hearing from tenants. We know tenants would like the capital directly to them, but at the very least, there should be greater flexibility between the landlord and the tenants.
Mr. Johns, I want to bring you into the discussion now. You've called for a nationwide moratorium on evictions. We just heard Mr. Cumming make the point, though, that landlords are business people too. So how fair is that, I guess, ultimately?
Well, I think right now what our concern is that small business people close their doors to protect public health. This program was intended to help small business owners pay their rent, but instead it was designed to support landlords, and it gave all control to landlords and was targeted to landlords. And instead it should have been tenant driven. Right now we're hearing that over half of landlords aren't even willing to apply for the program, for different reasons, that they some of them can't afford it, or they just simply don't want to. We've had an uptake of the program of only 16%, 63,000 businesses. That's compared to 730,000 businesses for the CBC loan. So they're failing miserably in delivering this program, and it should be in the hands of the tenant, and it should be scaled like the wage subsidy. Right now, it's very difficult to qualify. You might have a couple of good months in the summer, and then you're not qualifying. But really, it should be tenant-driven, and they need to fix the program. When they say they're working on it or they're listening to small business, this has been months now, and many businesses haven't been able to pay rent. You've heard about a business owner closing their doors. I know about 8 businesses in Courtenay that have closed their doors. I know of a brewery in Ucluelet that his landlord isn't willing to apply for the program. He can't pay his rent. I mean, we need the government to work on it now. They need to fix the program and make sure that it's accessible to all tenants to apply. There are tenants that this money was allocated, $3 billion. They haven't even spent $1 billion. And,
that's based on the parliamentary budget officer's estimate.
Yeah. But these businesses should have the same accessibility to the funds. Right now there's a barrier, and that's their landlords not applying.
Mr. Fergus, this is coming back around to you, but we are going to switch topics just a little bit and move on to the business accounts, because the government did extend and expand the Canada Emergency Business Account yesterday, or the CBC loan program for small businesses, providing access to $40,000 in interest-free loans to the end of October. But I want you to listen to what another business owner from Burlington, his name is Stefan DeGraaf, told us yesterday about the hurdles that he's encountered applying for that loan.
I've already been in the system for 7 weeks now, and we're looking at, a service guarantee of 5 to 15 days, and it's absolutely horrendous. There's no email communication. There's no ability to get in touch with people on the phone. And even when you do get in touch with somebody on the phone and they assure you that there's going to be an email that's going to follow up in regards to our conversation that we had, I've still not gotten an email over the last 7 days.
Now, Mr. DeGraaf said that sometimes he spends 5 hours on the phone, 6 hours on the phone, and then he gets cut off. This isn't an isolated case from what we understand. I've heard of other business owners talking about the same hurdles in the application process. Is the program working, Greg Fergus?
Well, I would say generally it is working. I was just speaking to some business people in my riding who had found that the having access to the business loan was fast, it was quick, and it was also deeply appreciated. I also spoke to some business owners when I happened to be in Toronto last week who had also expressed the same thing and how flexible it was for them.
Okay, but what about the folks like Mr. DeGraff for whom it isn't working? What do you say to them?
Mr. DeGraff and other folks who are in that work, say, please, I'd be more than happy to get his call or to hear directly, or they should call their member of parliament. That is not the service standard which we had set for Canadians. As you recall, when we started these programs in April and May, we invented them from whole cloth. And the general reaction is that it was flexible, it was quick, it did what it was supposed to do. I'm sorry that this has happened to Mr. DeGraff and to others, but you can be rest assured that we want to make sure that they get this money right away because they need it.
Mr. Cumming,
we've asked them to close their doors.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Mr. Fergus.
I just want to say that we've asked them to close their door because of a health issue, and they've done that, and they were good enough to do that. We got to make sure that we have their backs.
But can you say that you have their backs right now when we hear stories like this? And again, it's the first of the month.
I think, again,
how are you showing them you have their backs?
Overall, I think the service standard has been excellent. This is not a common criticism that we've heard about the program. It has been one that has happened in very few cases, but that's no excuse. We want to make sure that people do get their money so that they can have that flexibility to do what they need to do to keep their doors open until we get beyond this pandemic.
Okay, we are almost out of time, but Mr. Cumming, I want to go back to you quickly and just say the extension and the changes that were made yesterday on the business account. Is it good enough?
No, of course it's not good enough. We've been on the Liberals for months on this issue, on being able to use personal accounts. They still haven't given us the date when they're being available. I've raised it in the House time after time after time, and it appears to me that the second wave of changes that they made are causing the difficulty. The first wave that they came out with seemed to be working reasonably well. The second wave have been delayed. They started this hotline. I just got off a call with someone that spent 3.5 hours waiting, and still couldn't get clarification. It's not working. Again, I'm telling you, fix it.
Mr. Johns, I want to bring you in. More than 730,000 businesses have accessed the loan program. So is that a sign that it is working for a significant tranche of businesses?
It's absolutely critical. The big gaps right now I see are medium-sized businesses for the RIF funding, the big delays, the denials. People aren't even explained why they're getting denied. Back to the commercial rent program, the government needs to extend this program and they need to fix it. Even in Port Alberni, where I am right now, the local burrito shop, they can't access it because they're leasing from the local government, and they've made local governments ineligible. So make it tenant-driven so that they don't exclude so many different businesses. This would help save a lot of businesses. We're heading into a very difficult time of year right across the country for many small businesses, and a long winter ahead. And the government needs to stop, say they're listening to small business and working on it. They need to get it done.
Mr. Fergus, we are, I have to say, frankly, entirely out of time, but one thought, one sentence for business owners who are watching this right now in terms of what they can expect from your government.
They can expect full support from this government and from all the provincial and territorial governments. It's a Team Canada approach. We're all in this together.
Okay, well, they're still obviously waiting for some of those supports. We thank you all for your time today. Greg Fergus, Parliamentary Secretary to the President of the Treasury Board. James Cumming is Conservative Critic for Small Business, and Gord Johns is the NDP Critic for Small Business and Economic Development.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.